So second trimester, we're starting to needing to adapt a few things as we're exercising. So if you haven't done any exercise at all, and when you fall pregnant you think, right, this is the time I want to do some exercise, then that's great, that's completely fine to do, but I would wait until you had your scan or you were just into that second trimester before you take on something. And I would also make sure that it is quite pregnancy specific as opposed to being just a general exercise class. So that would be my first thing. If you have been exercising as you've fallen pregnant, and I spoke about this in the exercising in the first trimester video, then you will be fine to continue as you have been. Intensity wise, you may feel that you need to drop it because your energy levels, maybe sickness and stuff as well. So don't let that sort of get you sort of down or thinking, oh, I'm not very good at exercise just now, oh, this is killing me type thing, because hopefully that will pass by the time you get into your second trimester. But you are fine to carry on as you are, albeit to a lower intensity, and providing that you feel well enough to exercise. So the first thing I always say to pregnant women when they're exercising is to make sure that you have a qualified instructor to take you through your workouts, because it's important for your instructor to understand what's going on in your body, and you know yourself that baby changes each week. You know what part is developing and week number 19 and what size they are and stuff as well. And it's just as important for your instructor to know what week you're on, so they understand what changes are going on in the body as well, and what stage in your pregnancy you're at, because that's got a lot to do with different hormone fluctuations and how the body's going to change, and what exercise and what movements aren't going to be as comfortable for you as well. So it's important that you have somebody. Just because somebody has had children and are qualified to teach fitness doesn't necessarily mean that they are qualified or insured to have you under their wing, so to speak. And experience doesn't mean qualifications. So just making sure that you are with somebody who does hold the relevant qualifications for having you in their class. So one of the first things would be, you really want to start to think about developing that breath and pelvic floor work and integrating that into your exercise in the second trimester. When I do my pregnancy classes and my pregnancy courses, my focus for you as the mum to be is your recovery. So I want you to recover well, I want you to recover quickly, and what you do throughout your pregnancy can have a knock-on effect to that as well. So I've always got that in my mind when I'm planning out. I'm always thinking, I'm choosing these exercises, what benefits, they obviously have benefits to do during your pregnancy, what benefits do they have to my client's recovery? And that's what I want, because mums want to be able to recover quickly, because having that added sort of stress, as we call it, of a baby, when you're also trying to recover from trauma, where however you have delivered, if you've delivered vaginally or abdominally, it will be a trauma to the body. So you're having to recover. There is a complete recovery process from pregnancy, and you also had this new baby to look for, never mind all the hormonal and emotion fluctuations as well. So I always try to think, how can I make this easier for my new mum? And that's why I think integrating the breath work and the pelvic floor work is important at this stage, so that you continue doing that throughout your pregnancy, and that's going to keep your deep core muscles working. It's going to help with your stamina throughout your labour process, and as I say, it's going to help you get, I don't want to say get your body back, because I just think that's a really false thing for new mums to be promised, but to think about restoring that core coordination back, because after we've had babies, we do tend to have like back pain, our posture has changed, when we have pelvic pain and stuff as well, and this is all things that are going to be helping with that. So first of all, making sure that you're integrating your breath and your pelvic floor into your exercises, and if somebody is qualified in pregnancy exercise, they are going to be doing that with you anyway. Modifying your exercises, you will need to start doing this from the second trimester. If you are on to your second or third or fourth or whatever children, you will be aware that your body changes quicker in these subsequent pregnancies as opposed to in your first pregnancy. You'll feel that you're more further on than what you actually are. So if you think at week 18 you were about this size with baby 1, you will probably be a little bit bigger with baby 2, just because your body has already been there. It's got a memory. Your muscle has memory, so once it's been stretched, it will be like, oh, I've been here before, I'm comfortable with this. It will stretch a bit further quicker. So you may feel you have to modify your exercises earlier in your pregnancy if you are on to your second, third, fourth babies. Things like balance work. So this is very much so in your third trimester, but into that second trimester as well. Balance work, things where you're standing on one foot, might not be that comfortable for your pelvis, for your lower back, or the back of the pelvis. You might find it quite difficult to control your breath and your core and your pelvic floor when you're on one leg. So sometimes we might try to avoid exercises like that. Your balance does also sort of change because your centre of gravity changes, so you're not as balanced when you're standing on one leg as well. So that's one thing that we maybe have to modify coming into that second, or as you go through your second trimester. The other thing would be rotation moves. So things like this, your thoracic spine, which is the mid part of your back where all your ribs attached to, and your bump is going to be here. So when you are rotating, bump isn't going to let you rotate that much, and sometimes you just need a nice rotation to stretch the body off. But exercises where you're having to rotate are going to be you're going to do less of those, and you want to still do some rotation work with small rotation, but without any weights, without any resistance work. So it's more of a mobility move that you're wanting to do for that one, as opposed to strengthening moves. When we start to work a lot through the oblique muscles, we can sort of overwork these, and I'll talk more about diastasis recti in the abdominal separation for your third trimester. I will talk about it a wee bit today, but more in your third. These muscles that run here and here, they can be really strong, and they pull the abdominal muscles out, and that can contribute to your diastasis maybe not being rectified or becoming a little bit worse as well. So just keeping that in mind when you're doing any sort of rotation work. Moves where we are doing things overhead, we might want to start to reduce them, particularly if you've had any changes in your blood pressure. You should be having a weekly update with your instructor so they know when you've had your midwife appointment, has there been any change to your blood pressure? Have you had any dizzy spells, or has sickness kind of come back again? And they should be able to modify your exercises for those reasons as well. So you may want to start to reduce the amount of overhead moves, because we don't want your blood pressure increasing as well throughout pregnancy, particularly if you're maybe on that higher end anyway. I tend to shift to use a lot of bands. It's not that you can't use weights or dumbbells, but I think bands are much more versatile and a little bit more realistic for pregnant mums to use, as opposed to being quite strict with dumbbells and barbells and stuff like that. But definitely, if you have been using your dumbbells and barbells, continue with that, as long as you are applying all the other aspects like the breath and stuff as well. But I would be much more inclined, if I was working with a client, I would be much more inclined to have them doing band work. So the mini bands, or the big loop bands, or the long resistance band. I think they're really beneficial. When it comes to exercise where you're lying on your back, you want to, it really depends on the person here. So if you feel that when you're getting up from the floor, if you've been lying down on the floor doing an exercise flat on your back without any sort of raising of the shoulders or raising of the hips, and you feel that you're a little bit nauseous, you feel a bit sick or a little bit dizzy, then we want to avoid that position for you. That will maybe come throughout your second trimester, so just being really mindful when you're in that position. You will be able to lie down on your back for a few minutes at a time, and then you want to maybe lie over onto your side, do a couple of exercises there, or come up into a seated position. And remember, your body, you will move slowly through your exercises, so transitioning from the floor to standing. And that's why sometimes general fitness classes will move quicker, so you may have missed out half of the exercises by the time you go from sitting to standing. So for you, you might feel, just kind of feel as though I'm missing out half of the workout because it takes me so long to get from that position to that position. That's where pregnancy classes are different. They will allow you that time to move and get into the positions that you need to for your workouts as well. And that's, again, something your instructor should be taking into account for you throughout your workout as well. With the lying on the back, if you want to, you can prop some cushions underneath so that you're raising the shoulders a little bit higher. So you would have maybe 3 or 4 cushions sort of on a little incline, or one of these. You can get these sort of wedges where you can raise your shoulders, or likewise you can put them under your hips and raise up your hips for some of your moves as well. You want to be mindful of stretching. So we do have hormones in the body that do loosen off your ligaments and tendons to allow your hips to open for baby to grow, baby to nestle in, and for you to birth baby as well. So when we've got that, sometimes through pregnancy, I felt the complete opposite, to be honest. I felt really stiff all the time through pregnancy, but some people might feel that they can stretch much more, like, oh, look, my hamstrings, I'm really, really flexible. Try to avoid going to that range, because you could have you could be overstretching those ligaments and tendons, and resulting in kind of longer lasting issues. So especially if you've got hypermobility, so making sure you're not kind of overstretching through the joints. If you've got hypermobility, it's really important that you work on strength work. That's regardless of pregnancy. It's very important you work on the strength, because quite often we use our flexibility, like our superpower, to our advantage, as opposed to working on the strength. So that's on a side note there, obviously. With regards to what type of exercise you do, so people always say to me, when should you, how far should you do cardio? It's really, really up to the individual person. I often tell my pregnant mums that being pregnant is like a cardio workout, because you've got all that blood, you've got so much extra blood pumping around the body, your heart rate's up a lot of the time, you're breathing heavier, and it can feel, just by walking up your stairs, can feel like a cardio exercise. And I remember even having conversations sometimes with people when it would feel like you were getting out of breath. So I always say, I think that the strengthening work is really, really important, and you can make that into a cardio workout, as opposed to the other type of cardio you're working. Obviously, walking, swimming is very good, particularly if you do have issues with any pelvic issues. Your physio, if you're working with somebody, will be able to advise you a little bit more on that as well. But yeah, definitely thinking about the cardio work, being pregnant on its own is cardio, I always say. So what else was there? That was the modifying the exercises as your bump starts to grow. The rotation move, the overhead use, and moves that I use the bands a lot. The strength work as opposed to the cardio work, lying on the back, and the stretching as well. I think that's generally most of the things that I was wanting to talk about. I also wanted to mention about the pregnant core. Working your core through pregnancy is different to working it generally. So you might think, I want to do core exercises when you're pregnant, but things like planks and leg drops can increase the pressure in the abdomen, and that can cause muscle weakness. So we want to try to avoid that and work on your pregnant core, and integrating your core exercises into exercises for your arms, for your legs and your back and stuff as well is really important. And we do all this in my pregnancy classes as well. So just thinking about, it is very different to work the pregnant core as opposed to working your general core. And how you work your pregnant core is how you're going to work your core forever more, because it's all about posture, back pain, hip pain, restoring that connection, because it is compromised through pregnancy and compromised through your birthing process as well. So making sure that you are reconnecting that afterwards. And if you know how to do it in pregnancy, you can start doing that straight after you have baby. You can start doing that really early on in those early days. The other things I always recommend for pregnant women to think about is maybe having a snack just before you work out, maybe about 30 minutes before and about 30 minutes after as well. Your blood sugar levels can really fluctuate throughout pregnancy, and smaller meals, especially in the second trimester, when everything starts to grow a bit more, you might feel that you get really full, and then this is towards the end of the second trimester, you get really full, but then half an hour later you're hungry again. So maybe focusing on having those smaller, more regular meals throughout the day, almost like kind of quite big snacks. And having that about 30 minutes before will keep your blood sugar levels high to fuel your exercise as well. So that's quite a good idea before and after you exercise. Staying hydrated is so important. Anyway, never mind when you're pregnant. If you think about all the fluid, all that extra blood and all the amniotic fluid that the baby's in as well, we want to make sure that you are staying really hydrated throughout this period as well. So increasing the water intake and yeah, keeping your water up nice and high. Make sure the room that you're in is quite ventilated. It's not warm and stuffy, because we don't want your body temperature increasing really high. You've already got your own central heating going on in there, so we really don't want to be increasing that anymore. And the last thing really was just any equipment you're using, bands, weights, massage balls, anything like that, just make sure they're not sort of lying around on the floor, and in case you've got a risk of falling over on them, basically. So once you finish using it, put it up on the table, put it up on the couch, or just move it well out of the way on the floor. If you've got it on the couch, it's less to bend down to get them, obviously, as well. That's more third trimester. I'll talk about that in my next video. So hopefully that's been quite helpful for you. If you do have any questions in particular about exercising when you find out that you're pregnant, exercise into a second trimester or your third trimester, that video is coming very soon. Please don't hesitate to get in touch and ask. And if you are pregnant, congratulations, and I hope I can help you through this period of time. Okay.